Minister, I'd just like to ask you about plans to expedite legislation to amend the Litter Pollution Act 1997 and the Waste Management Act 1996 to provide a lawful basis for local authorities to use CCTV to detect and prosecute illegal dumping.
Thank you, Deputy. This is a question close to my heart. I spent several years in local government and came across this issue. My department published the General Scheme of the Circular Economy Bill 2021 on the 15th of June 2021. It's my intention under the bill to facilitate not only the use of CCTV, but also the use of a broad range of audiovisual recording equipment in order to assist local authorities in their efforts to combat litter and illegal dumping. Drafting of the bill is well advanced as is, and I understand that the pre-legislative scrutiny process before the Joint Committee on Environment and Climate Action is nearly complete. The bill will be published and enacted as soon as possible after pre-legislative scrutiny has been completed, and I have considered the report of the committee. I look forward to receiving the committee's recommendations and I will respond constructively to them. A combination of legislation and guidance will help to ensure that the processing of personal data obtained through the use of CCTV and audiovisual equipment may be carried out by local authorities tasked with enforcing both litter and waste legislation, thus providing an important deterrent in order to protect our environment from the scourge of illegal dumping, while at the same time respecting the privacy of our citizens. And I think you know, Deputy, that this type of crime is often a furtive crime. It's a shameful thing that people do, and they do it when they think nobody's looking. And I think that CCTV in particular locations, we can't cover the country with it, but in certain locations, for example, at council recycling facilities where people just rock up and throw things on the ground, I think that will really help with that problem. I think the use of audio equipment also helps. I've seen situations where local authorities shout out and call out people who are dumping through a loudspeaker. They record the details of their car registration number and they send them a fine afterwards. And penalties are not the only part of it, but there's a persistent recidivist section of the population, a small minority, who cause a lot of this waste being thrown around. I don't want to drive through rural Ireland and see sofas and cars and things thrown in the fields, and I'm very happy if we can improve enforcement and catch people doing this. Thank you.
Yeah, Gormagat Ara, and thanks again for your response. And as you've said, none of us want to drive through, be it rural Ireland or even the outskirts of Cork City. In my case, where you're looking at sofas, washing machines, dishwashers, you name it, it's there. Unfortunately, in many of the ditches and dikes, especially on the county bounds with the city. You did reference, the response of local authorities, and I must say, look, all local authorities that I deal with are excellent in terms of the clean-up initiative and the anti-litter units that they have. They're well resourced and they're very good at their job. But unfortunately, much of the interaction I have with both local authorities in Cork is, they are wary of, I suppose, being saddled with the issue of becoming a data controller, because at the moment they are saying that they're not resourced to do that. And that's their big concern. So if there is any, I suppose, changes coming down the track, I think it needs to be followed up with the appropriate resources and money. And I suppose the other thing I'd like to say is, the whole issue of naming and shaming, I know it's a contentious enough issue, but I think that insofar as possible and practicable in terms of GDPR, I think it needs to be considered.
Thank you, Deputy. So privacy concerns are the issue here, and I think that a number of local authorities have run into hot water by where they've been found by whatever agency of government to be breaching privacy concerns. And with that in mind, and looking at the precepts of GDPR legislation, one of the rules in GDPR is that it's lawful to do things that are permitted under primary legislation, and that's why when I bring in that legislation next spring, with your help, I hope, the Circular Economy Bill, we will provide primary legislation, a statutory underpinning for when CCTV can be used to enforce and to provide evidence for prosecution against people dumping litter in Ireland. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it goes without saying that you'll have, unanimous support for that bill when it does come before the House. And I suppose just as a parting word, if you could provide, maybe, or if your department has details in terms of the number of offences maybe and prosecutions that have been issued by the various, in my own case, Cork County Council and Cork City Council over the last number of years, I think that's something that would be illuminating, because I can remember sitting on Cork County Council with Deputy Cairns over, and the number of prosecutions that were issued, or the number of cases that came before the courts, were minute, and that would be a cause of concern for myself and others, because this is about providing a deterrent for people in terms of their activity. And as you said, it is only a very small minority that unfortunately is destroying our beautiful countryside, but at the same time I think we need to tackle these people head on. So I'd welcome any information that you could provide in terms of prosecution and offences.
Thank you, Deputy. So look, the statistics are really important because they tell you whether the law is functioning or not. So I commit absolutely to provide you with county by county details on waste prosecutions that have successfully happened, and I'll be happy to come back to you on that. And I think you can see that you can contrast the people who are going to a lot of trouble to dispose of their waste correctly. They're wondering, is this going in the green bin or the black bin or whatever they're doing, and they are conscientious and they represent the vast majority of the population. And then you contrast that with somebody who, as you said, is throwing a washing machine into a field in a suburban area, and doing it well aware of what they're doing. And that kind of person cannot be converted by a public information campaign. You can't appeal to their better nature. The only thing they understand is prosecution and a fine and shaming. So that's the approach we're going to take. And thank you very much, Deputy O'Sullivan, for your comments. And I understand that your local authority suffered under the privacy things. The changes to the privacy legislation within the within the climate, within the circular economy bill will not be unlimited. They will only be available to be used in certain circumstances. Thank you.